The Sovereign Military Hospitaller Order of St. John of Jerusalem of Rhodes and of Malta, also known as the Sovereign Military Order of Malta or Order of Malta, is a Roman Catholic lay religious order traditionally of military, chivalrous and noble nature. It was founded as the Knights Hospitaller circa 1099 in Jerusalem, Kingdom of Jerusalem, by Gerard Dom, making it the world's oldest surviving chivalric order. Headquartered in Palazzo Malta in Rome, widely considered a sovereign subject of international law, its mission is summed up in its motto, Tuitio Fidei Obsequim Pauperum, protecting the Roman Catholic Church and serving those in need. The Sovereign Military Order of Malta is the modern Rome-based continuation of the medieval Knights Hospitaller, with origins in the Fraternitas Hospitalaria hospital founded circa 1048 by Amalfitan merchants in the Muristan district of Jerusalem. Fatimid Caliphate, to provide medical care for pilgrims to the Holy Land. Following the conquest of Jerusalem in 1099 during the First Crusade and the loss of the Kingdom of Jerusalem to the Mamluk Sultanate, it became chartered as a military order to protect against Islamic persecution of Christians, recognized as sovereign in 1113 by Pope Paschal II. It operated from Cyprus, Rhodes, Malta, over which it was sovereign until the French occupation, and from Palazzo Malta in Rome from 1834 until the present, subsequently known under its current name. The order venerates as its patroness Mary, Mother of Jesus, under the title Our Lady of Mount Philermos. The entity retains sovereignty under international law, including United Nations permanent observer status, issuing its own passports, currency and postage stamps with the Maltese cross insignia. The order's military corps, 3 brigades, are stationed throughout Italy, liaisoned with the Italian armed forces. The order, with 13,500 knights, dames and auxiliary members, employs about 25,000 doctors, nurses, auxiliaries and paramedics, assisted by 80,000 volunteers in more than 120 countries, assisting children, homeless, handicapped, refugeed, elders, terminally ill and lepers around the world without distinction of ethnicity or religion. Through its worldwide relief corps, Malteser International, the order aids victims of natural disasters, epidemics and war, in several countries, including France, Germany and Ireland. Local associations of the order are important providers of medical emergency services and training. Name and insignia. The order has a large number of local priories and associations around the world, but there also exist a number of organizations with similar sounding names that are unrelated, including numerous fraudulent orders seeking to capitalize on the name. In the ecclesiastical heraldry of the Roman Catholic Church, the Order of Malta is one of only 2 orders whose insignia may be displayed in a clerical coat of arms. The shield is surrounded with a silver rosary for professed knights, or for others the ribbon of the rank. Members may also display the Maltese cross behind the shield instead of the ribbon, in order to protect its heritage against frauds. The order has legally registered 16 versions of its names and emblems in some 100 countries. History. In February 2013, the order celebrated its 900th anniversary as a sovereignty entity by recognition on the 15th of February 1113 of the papal bull Pi Postulatio Voluntatis, issued by Pope Paschal II. The celebration included a general audience given by Pope Benedict XVI and a Holy Mass celebrated by Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone at St. Peter's Basilica. Foundation. The birth of the order dates back to around 1048. Merchants from the ancient Marine Republic of Amalfi obtained from the Caliph of Egypt the authorization to build a church, convent, and hospital in Jerusalem, to care for pilgrims of any religious faith or race. The Order of St. John of Jerusalem, the monastic community that ran the hospital for the pilgrims in the Holy Land, became independent under the guidance of its founder, the Gerard Dom, with the bull of 15 February 1113, Pope Pascal II approved the foundation of the hospital and placed it under the aegis of the Holy See, granting it the right to freely elect its superiors without interference from other secular or religious authorities. By virtue of the papal bull, the hospital became an order exempt from the control of the local church. All the knights were religious, bound by the three monastic vows of poverty, chastity and obedience. The constitution of the Kingdom of Jerusalem regarding the Crusades obliged the order to take on the military defense of the sick, the pilgrims, and the territories that the Crusaders had captured from the Muslims. The order thus added the task of defending the faith to that of its hospitaller mission. As time went on, the order adopted the white eight-pointed cross that is still its symbol today. The 8 points represent the 8 Beatitudes that Jesus referred to in his Sermon on the Mount. Cyprus. When the last Christian stronghold in the Holy Land fell after the siege of Acre in 1291, the order settled first in Cyprus. Rhodes in 1310, led by Grand Master Fra Falx de Villaret, it regrouped on the island of Rhodes. For their defense of the Christian world required the organization of a naval force, so the order built a powerful fleet and sailed the eastern Mediterranean, fighting many famous battles for the sake of Christendom, including crusades in Syria and Egypt. In the early 14th century, the institutions of the order and the knights who came to Rhodes from every corner of Europe were grouped according to the languages they spoke. The initial 7 such groups, or langues, Provence, Auvergne, France, Italy, Aragon, England, and Germany, became 8 in 1492, when Castile and Portugal were separated from the Lang of Aragon. Each lang included priories or grand priories, bailiwicks, and commanderies. The order was governed by its Grand Master and Council. From its beginning, independence from other nations granted by pontifical charter and the universally recognized right to maintain and deploy armed forces constituted grounds for the international sovereignty of the order, which minted its own coins and maintained diplomatic relations with other states. The senior positions of the order were given to representatives of different langs. Malta. After 6 months of siege and fierce combat against the fleet and army of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, the knights were forced to surrender in 1523 and left Rhodes with military honors. The order remained without a territory of its own until 1530, when Grand Master Fra Philippe de Villiers de l'Isle Adam took possession of the island of Malta, granted to the order by Emperor Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, and his mother Queen Joanna of Castile as monarchs of Sicily, with the approval of Pope Clement VII, for which the order had to honor the conditions of the tribute of the Maltese falcon. Protestant Reformation. The Reformation, which split Western Europe into Protestant and Roman Catholic states, affected the knights as well. In several countries, including England, Scotland and Sweden, the order was disestablished. In others, including the Netherlands and Germany, entire bailiwicks or commanderies experienced religious conversions. The Johanniter orders claim to be the modern Protestant continuations of these converted divisions in Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, and other countries, including the United States and South Africa. It was established that the order should remain neutral in any war between Christian nations. Colonies in the Caribbean from 1651 to 1665. The Order of St. John ruled 4 islands in the Caribbean. On the 21st of May 1651, it acquired the islands of St. Barthélemy, St. Christopher, St. Croix and St. Martin. These were purchased from the French Compagnie des Isles de l'Amérique, which had just been dissolved. In 1665 the four islands were sold to the French West India Company. Great Siege of Malta in 1565. The knights, led by Grand Master Fra Jean de Valette, defended the island for more than 3 months during the Great Siege by the Turks. Battle of Lepanto. The fleet of the Order contributed to the ultimate destruction of the Ottoman naval power in the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. Led by John of Austria, half-brother of King Philip II of Spain. French occupation of Malta. 200 years later, in 1798, the Order surrendered the Maltese Islands to the French First Republic under Napoleon. Following the French Revolution and the subsequent French Revolutionary Wars, exile following the French occupation of Malta, the Knights were expelled from the territory. The Treaty of Amiens obliged the United Kingdom to evacuate in Malta, which was to be restored to a recreated Order of St. John, whose sovereignty was to be guaranteed by all of the major European powers, to be determined at the final peace. However, this was not to be, because objections to the treaty quickly grew in the UK. Bonaparte's rejection of a British offer involving a 10-year lease of Malta prompted the reactivation of the British blockade of the French coast. Britain declared war on France on the 18th of May. The 1802 treaty was never implemented. The UK gave its official reasons for resuming hostilities as France's imperialist policies in the West Indies, Italy and Switzerland. Rome, after having temporarily resided in Messina, Catania and Ferrara. In 1834 the precursor of the sovereign military Order of Malta settled definitively in Rome, where it owns with extraterritorial status. The Magistral Palace in Via Condotti 68 and the Magistral Villa on the Aventine Hill. The original Hospitaller mission became the main activity of the Order, growing ever stronger during the last century, most especially because of the contribution of the activities carried out by the Grand Priories and national associations in so many countries around the world. Large-scale hospitaller and charitable activities were carried out during World Wars I and II under Grand Master Fra Ludovico Chigi Albani della Rovere. Under the Grand Masters Fra Angelo de Mojana di Coloni and Fra Andrew Berti, the projects expanded. Return to Malta. 2 bilateral treaties have been concluded with the government of the Maltese state. The first treaty is dated the 21st of June 1991 and is now no longer in force. The second treaty was signed on the 5th of December 1998, but ratified on the 1st of November 2001. This agreement grants the Order the use with limited extraterritoriality of the upper portion of Fort Sant'Angelo in the city of Bergu. Its stated purpose is to give the Order the opportunity to be better enabled to carry out its humanitarian activities as Knights Hospitallers from St. Angelo, as well as to better define the legal status of St. Angelo subject to the sovereignty of Malta over it. The agreement has a duration of 99 years, but the document allows the Maltese government to terminate it at any time after 50 years. Under the terms of the agreement, the flag of Malta is to be flown together with the flag of the Order in a prominent position over St. Angelo. No asylum may be granted by the Order, and generally the Maltese courts have full jurisdiction and Maltese law shall apply. A number of immunities and privileges are mentioned in the second bilateral treaty. No such immunities were contemplated by the first treaty. Organization. Governance. The proceedings of the Order are governed by its constitutional charter and the Order's code. It is divided internationally into 6 territorial Grand Priories, 6 sub-priories and 47 national associations. The supreme head of the Order is the Grand Master, who is elected for life by the Council Complete of State, holds the precedence of a Cardinal of the Church since 1630 and received the rank of Prince of the Holy Roman Empire in 1607. Matthew Festing was elected by the council as 79th headmaster on the 11th of March 2008, succeeding Andrew Bertie, who was Grand Master until his death on the 7th of February 2008. Electors in the council include the members of the Sovereign Council, other office holders and representatives of the members of the order. The Grand Master is aided by the Sovereign Council, which is elected by the Chapter General, the legislative body of the order. The Chapter General meets every 5 years. At each meeting, all seats of the Sovereign Council are up for election. The Sovereign Council includes 6 members and 4 high officers: the Grand Commander, the Her Chancellor, the Grand Hospitaller and the Receiver of the Common Treasure. The Grand Commander is the chief religious officer of the order and serves as interim lieutenant during a vacancy in the office of Grand Master. The Her Chancellor, whose office includes those of the Ministry of the Interior and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is the head of the executive branch. He is responsible for the diplomatic missions of the order and relations with the national associations. The Grand Hospitaller's responsibilities include the offices of Minister for Humanitarian Action and Minister for International Cooperation. He coordinates the order's humanitarian and charitable activities. Finally, the Receiver of the Common Treasure is the Minister of Finance and Budget. He directs the administration of the finances and property of the order. Patrons of the order since 1961. The patron, who is always a cardinal, promotes the spiritual interests of the order and its members, and its relations with the Holy See. Paolo Giob, Giacomo Violado, Paul Pier Filippo, P. Sebastiano Baggio, Pio Laghi, Paolo Sardi, Raymond Leo Burke. Membership in the order is divided into 3 classes and subdivided into several categories, i.e. First class, containing only 1 category, Knights of Justice are professed knights, and the professed conventual chaplains, who take religious vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience and form what amounts to a religious order. There are also 3 surviving enclosed monasteries of nuns of the order, 2 in Spain and 1 in Malta, whose members hold the same rank in the order as chaplains. Second class, Knight and Dames of Obedience, similarly restricted until recently. These knights and dames make a promise, rather than a vow, of obedience. This class is subdivided into 3 categories, namely that of Knight and Dames of Honor and Devotion in Obedience, Knight and Dames of Grace and Devotion in Obedience, and Knight and Dames of Magistral Grace in Obedience. Third class, which is subdivided into 6 categories: Knights and Dames of Honor and Devotion, Conventual Chaplains ad honorem, Knights and Dames of Grace and Devotion, Magistral Chaplains, Knights and Dames of Magistral Grace, and Knights of Devotion. All categories of this class are made up of members who take no vows and who had to show a decreasingly extensive history of nobility. Within each class and category of knights are ranks ranging from Bailiff Head Cross through Knight Grand Cross. A knight, thus one could be a Knight of Grace and Devotion, or a Bailiff Head Cross of Justice. The final rank of Donat is offered to some who joined the order in the class of Justice, but who are not knights. Bishops and priests are generally honorary members, or knights, of the Order of Malta. However, there are some priests who are full members of the order, and this is usually because they were conferred knighthood prior to ordination. The priests of the Order of Malta are ranked as honorary canons, as in the Order of the Holy Sepulchre, and they are entitled to wear the black mozzetta with purple piping and purple fascia. Prior to the 1990s, all officers of the order had to be of noble birth, as they were all Knights of Justice or of Obedience. However, Knights of Magistral Grace now may make the promise of obedience and, at the discretion of the headmaster and sovereign council, may enter the novitiate to become professed Knights of Justice. Worldwide, there are over 13,000 knights and dames, a small minority of whom are professed religious. Membership of the order is by invitation only and solicitations are not entertained. The order's finances are audited by a board of auditors, which includes a president and 4 councillors, all elected by the chapter general. The order's judicial powers are exercised by a group of magistral courts, whose judges are appointed by the headmaster and sovereign council. International status. SMOM has formal diplomatic relations with 106 states and has official relations with another 6 states and with the European Union. Additionally, it has relations with the International Committee of the Red Cross and a number of international organizations, including observer status at the UN and some of the specialized agencies. Its international nature is useful in enabling it to pursue its humanitarian activities without being seen as an operative of any particular nation. Its sovereignty is also expressed in the issuance of passports, license plates, stamps, and coins. With its unique history and unusual present circumstances, the exact status of the order in international law has been the subject of debate. It describes itself as a sovereign subject of international law. Quote, its 2 headquarters in Rome, the Palazzo Malta in Via dei Condotti 68, where the headmaster resides and government bodies meet, and the Villa del Priorato di Malta on the Aventine, which hosts the Grand Priory of Rome, Fort St. Angelo on the island of Malta. The Embassy of the Order to Holy See and the Embassy of the Order to Italy have all been granted extraterritoriality. Unlike the Holy See, however, which is sovereign over Vatican City and thus has clear territorial separation of its sovereign area and that of Italy, SMOM has had no territory since the loss of the island of Malta in 1798, other than only those current properties with extraterritoriality listed above. Italy recognizes, in addition to extraterritoriality, the exercise by SMOM of all the prerogatives of sovereignty in its headquarters. Therefore, Italian sovereignty and SMOM sovereignty uniquely coexist without overlapping. The United Nations does not classify it as a non-member state or intergovernmental organization, but as one of the other entities having received a standing invitation to participate as observers. For instance, while the International Telecommunication Union has granted radio identification prefixes to such quasi-sovereign jurisdictions as the United Nations and the Palestinian Authority, SMOM has never received one. For awards purposes, amateur radio operators consider SMOM to be a separate entity, but stations transmitting from the use an entirely unofficial call sign, starting with the prefix 1A. Likewise, for Internet and telecommunications identification, the SMOM has neither sought nor been granted a top-level domain or international dialing code, whereas the Vatican City uses its own domain, and has been allocated the country code +379. There are differing opinions as to whether a claim to sovereign status has been recognized. Ian Brownlee, Helmut Steinberger, and Wilhelm Wengler are among experts who say that the claim has not been recognized. Even taking into account the order's ambassadorial diplomatic status among many nations, a claim to sovereign status is sometimes rejected. The order maintains diplomatic missions around the world and many of the states reciprocate by accrediting ambassadors to the order. Wengler, a German professor of international law, addresses this point in his book Völkerrecht, and rejects the notion that recognition of the order by some states can make it a subject of international law. Conversely, Professor Rebecca Wallace, writing more recently in her book International Law, explains that a sovereign entity does not have to be a country, and that SMOM is an example of this. This position appears to be supported by the number of nations extending diplomatic relations to the order, which more than doubled from 49 to 100 in the 20-year period to 2008. In 1953, the Holy See decreed that the Order of Malta's quality as a sovereign institution is functional, to ensure the achievement of its purposes in the world, and that as a subject of international law, it enjoys certain powers, but not the entire set of powers of sovereignty in the full sense of the word. On 24 June 1961, Pope John XXIII approved the Constitutional Charter, which contains the most solemn reaffirmations of the sovereignty of the Order. Article 1 affirms that the Order is a legal entity formally approved by the Holy See. It has the quality of a subject of international law. Article 3 states that the intimate connection existing between the two qualities of a religious order and a sovereign order do not oppose the autonomy of the order in the exercise of its sovereignty and prerogatives inherent to it as a subject of international law in relation to states. Currency and postage stamps. The SMOM coins are appreciated more for the subject matter than for the use as currency. SMOM postage stamps, however, have been gaining acceptance among Universal Postal Union member nations. The SMOM began issuing euro-denominated postage stamps in 2005, although the scudo remains the official currency of the SMOM. Also in 2005, the Italian Post agreed with the SMOM to deliver internationally most classes of mail other than registered, insured, and special delivery mail. Additionally, 56 countries recognize SMOM stamps for franking purposes, including those such as Canada and Mongolia that lack diplomatic relations with the Order. Military Corps. The Order states that it was the hospitaller role that enabled the Order to survive the end of the crusading era. Nonetheless, it retains its military title and traditions. On 26 March 1876, the Association of the Italian Knights of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta reformed the Order's military to a modern military unit of the era. This unit provided medical support to the Italian army, and on 9 April 1909 the military corps officially became a special auxiliary volunteer corps of the Italian army under the name Corpo Militare dell'Esercito dello Sisma, wearing Italian uniforms. Since then the military corps have operated with the Italian army both in wartime and peacetime in medical or paramedical military functions, and in ceremonial functions for the Order, such as standing guard around the coffins of high officers of the Order before and during funeral rites. I believe that it is a unique case in the world that a unit of the army of one country is supervised by a body of another sovereign country. Just think that whenever our staff is engaged in a military mission abroad, there is the flag of the Order flying below the Italian flag. Air Force. In 1947, after the post-World War II peace treaty forbade Italy to own or operate bomber aircraft and only operate a limited number of transport aircraft, the Italian Air Force opted to transfer some of its Savoio Marchetti Ed M82 aircraft to the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, pending the definition of their exact status. These aircraft were operated by Italian Air Force personnel temporarily flying for the Order, carried the Order's roundels on the fuselage and Italian ones on the wings, and were used mainly for standard Italian Air Force training and transport missions, but also for some humanitarian tasks proper of the Order of Malta. In the early 50s, when the strictures of the peace treaty had been much relaxed by the Allied authorities, the aircraft returned under full control of the Italian Air Force. One of the aircraft transferred to the Order of Malta, still with the Order's fuselage roundels, is preserved in the Italian Air Force Museum. Logistics. The military corps has become known in mainland Europe for its operation of hospital trains, a service which was carried out intensively during both World Wars. The military corps still operate a modern 28 cars hospital train with 192 hospital beds, serviced by a medical staff of 38 medics and paramedics provided by the Order and a technical staff provided by the Italian Army Railway Engineers Regiment. Orders, decorations, and medals. Orders, decorations, and medals of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. Order Pro Merito Militum C.